Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. Welcome to one of my Halloween themed reviews. I thought with the lead up to Halloween this year I would do some Halloween themed reviews, and the first one I have chosen is the 1999 classic Halloween film Sleepy Hollow. This was directed by Tim Burton and it stars, great cast, we've got Johnny Depp, Christina Ricci, Miranda Richardson, Michael Gambon, Casper Van Dien, Jeffrey Jones, Richard Griffiths, Ian McDermott, Michael Gough, and Christopher Walken. Fantastic cast. Now, this is obviously based on the famous book, the famous story of Sleepy Hollow, and it follows Johnny Depp, who plays Constable Kane, who heads off to Sleepy Hollow from the streets of New York. It's set in 1799. He wants to progress the police forward in their techniques. He thinks it's really prehistoric the way the police investigate crimes. He thinks there's a better way. So essentially, to get rid of him, they send him off to Sleepy Hollow to investigate a series of beheadings of the local people out there. He heads off there thinking it's just a normal killer, but in actual fact, it is the Headless Horseman, and he is faced with these horrors, but at the same time is compelled to investigate and solve their crimes. Right, what are my thoughts on Sleepy Hollow? This has always been one of my favourite Johnny Depp stroke Tim Burton films. I think when this came out in 99, I'm just trying to think if there were any Johnny Depp films that I was a particular fan of before this. And if I'm being honest, even though I was aware who Johnny Depp was up to Sleepy Hollow, I'm not sure there's anything he'd done up to that point where I was kind of like, yeah, I'm a big fan of Johnny Depp's. This was probably the first one where it felt really accessible to me. Now, Tim Burton has got a very particular style of his direction, and you know, if you didn't know who was directing this film, you'd never seen this film before, and you watched it and no one told you who it was, you would know instantly this is a Tim Burton film. It's got his styles, his style of filmmaking all over this film, and all the better for it. Now, sometimes I think he's overused it over the years, Tim Burton. Sometimes it feels a little bit tired at this point. You know, this the way he approaches his filmmaking for the most part. But it absolutely works for this film. This really gothic, dark approach to making this film, but with a really, really light tone at the same time, which comes from the brilliant Johnny Depp, who I think is magnificent in this film as Ichabod Crane. He plays this guy who is, you know, determined to kind of push the police force forward in its investigating technique, shall we say. But he's something of a coward almost. But he always does the right thing. That's what I like about this character. He's insanely cowardly in this film, but he's incredibly brave at the same time. I think they walk that line really beautifully in this film with this character, and I don't think anybody else could have done it, or anybody else would have been secure in their masculinity to do what Johnny Depp did in this film. This really off-kilter performance of Constable Crane, like I say, being really cowardly. The scenes that stick out for me in this film in regards to Johnny Depp is when they're retelling the story of the Headless Horseman to him when he first arrives, and the camera cuts to him and his teapot shaking, his teacup, I mean. It's brilliant, and that fantastic scene where he sees that spider and he gets up on the chair terrified, and he tells that boy to kill the spider, and he goes, no, stun it. It's just brilliant, and I think this film balances like horror with light comedy and great gothic themes, with some nice characters, and I think it balances it all really, really well. There's not really what you could say is a real weakness to this film. It's stupidly entertaining, but at the same time as well, you don't really want to categorize it as a horror. It's more of a fantasy stroke horror, this. There are some brutal scenes in this film, obviously the beheadings and things like that, and a couple of other scenes here and there. But it like I say, the lighter tone makes it more accessible to an audience member. This is the kind of film I would show somebody who's not a fan of horror, because they could watch this and be excited and scared, but in a really healthy way, in a way that's not going to make them uncomfortable. And I think this film does that absolutely brilliantly in regards to how it spins those plates, this film. It makes it accessible for all audience members. There's nobody that could watch this and I don't think walk away to that was rubbish. It's great. It's a great action adventure as well. It's got some nice action scenes in it. It's got some nice horror in it. It's got some lighter moments in it. It looks absolutely stunning. The way it's been made, the way it looks, the way it's lit. Most of it is at night for the most part. Not everything, but the majority of it's set at night. I think the only thing you could criticise in this film is the chemistry between Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci. They're supposed to be a love interest, and it doesn't work. I don't think it works in this film. And they kind of even admitted it themselves, because I think, was it a film just a few years before this where she played his little sister or something in a film? And I don't remember what film that was. And she then was cast as his love interest in a film like 2 or 3 years later or something like that. So you could see why that didn't work. And I don't think that casting worked for the most part. But obviously Christina Ricci is not bad in the film. I just think that love interest just doesn't necessarily work, and you don't buy that chemistry between them. But that's the only thing I think I could point out in regards to that doesn't necessarily work in this film. The rest of it I think is brilliant. Lots of fun, and I really enjoyed revisiting this to prepare for this Halloween review. So I'm going to do maybe a couple of these a week leading up to Halloween. I'm not going to inundate you with Halloween-themed reviews, because I'm not really a horror channel, so to speak, but I will litter 1 or 2 a week leading up to Halloween for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I will, of course, be back with loads more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.